All right. I think everything is in place. Yes, sir. I see GCM with First Blood this morning. Rock and roll. And actually, GCM, this topic I'm covering this morning. Not directly, but is definitely related to your enterprise as well. So let's dig into this. And good morning. How we doing this morning? I see GCM, I see Uncle Steve, Fit Life with Danielle, who I'm sure put out another blog yesterday, and I'm sorry, sweetheart, I haven't seen it yet. And Your Majesty, Dad's with us in the chat as well. Good morning, everybody. Love to see you. And my favorite Ninja Turtle, Matty Parks, my man. What's going on this morning, guys? We're going to be talking a little bit about this article that just came across my desk this morning. And in part, I'll say thank God for that, because I had no idea what I was going to talk about up until about half an hour ago. But I'm going to read the article, talk a little bit about what's going on in this article, and then relate it to what's going on in the news generally. The headline says, liberal activists want to buy your local TV stations. So anytime I see a headline that says liberal activists want to X, Y, and Z, and this is kind of the larger piece that I want to talk about, is I ask myself, why? Why do I never see headlines that say conservative activists want to do X, Y, and Z? And that's because that's where conservatism kind of breaks for us, unfortunately. The fact of the matter is this. Outside of the United States, the words liberal and conservative mean something a little different. The word conservative in the political context refers to the conservation of the core of the national identity, right? So outside of the United States, it refers to the conservation of a monarchy or a dynasty of some sort. It generally refers to the conservation of a tradition and a history of a nation whose histories and traditions are precisely the opposite of what the United States was founded on. When you talk about conservatism in the United States, the thing that we seek to conserve, and this is why it gets so confusing when we talk about the dichotomy between conservatism and liberalism, the thing that we seek to conserve is not the country. The country is a physical space and a national security and the people and the culture that make up that geopolitical entity. But what we seek to conserve as conservatives in the United States generally is the tradition of the Constitution, which is the most liberal legal document ever drafted. And yes, I hold that up against every policy document ever put forward by a Democrat any day of the week. It is the most liberal document ever drafted because it is a document about liberty, about the obliteration of a centralized rulership, a centralized leadership. And when we say the obliteration and the destruction of a centralized leadership, recall that under the original founding, The concept was a loose and semi-formalized cooperation between a set of individual sovereign states with their own individual sets of laws and ways of conducting business, and the concept of the individual small laboratories of liberty, right? You do things your way in Georgia, we'll do things differently in New York, and we'll see who comes out better. And to an extent, the Laboratory of Liberty is still a very cogent experiment, and we're seeing Florida is booming, Georgia is booming, California is dying. Right, you look to California for a moment, and you'll see that places like your Walmarts in California, they have everything locked up like it's valuable, because there's no deterrent at all to criminals who want to just walk in and steal a television. Right, you walk in and pick up a television that's less than $900, and the employees aren't supposed to stop you. The police aren't going to prosecute you. You just go take it. It's just there. For all intents and purposes, you're not stealing. You're actually just going and acquiring a piece of property that's been made and advertised as being freely available to you based on the legal policies of the area. Now, the Constitution, remember, the Constitution had to be amended to allow for income tax, to allow for such intrusive and invasive things as a personal income tax, which I still maintain is not only unconstitutional on the face of the Constitution originally forbidding it generally, but the fact that the IRS can force you without cause, without probable cause of a crime, to surrender your Fourth Amendment right and expose your documents to them makes the organization unconstitutional on its face. So, but where are the conservative groups that are engaged in activism on this? And I can tell you, I go to the local GOP meeting in Rockdale every month. I've got several friends who I get to see there that I like to, that's the one time a month that we kind of get a couple of minutes to hang out, because we're all busy people. Unlike Democrats, for example, we have jobs to go to. You'll find if you look for the local Democrat HQ and their meetings, they're always full. Their jobs don't get in the way of going and doing politicking, because in order for your job to get in the way, you have to have one. That's another thing the Democrats do very, very well, is they have a grand talent for tapping that very, very valuable resource of unexpended human capital. More correctly, like in the case of Obamacare, they're just very comfortable with slavery. Any way they can convert it and make it appear to be not slavery, they love them some slavery. Always have. So, when I see a headline that says progressive activists, liberal activists, left-wing activists, I wonder where the right is. And in fairness, I don't know how to go about becoming an activist. Beyond having my soapbox where I do this show, I'm not sure where my efforts and talents can be applied to getting involved in legitimate conservative activism. But I'm starting to get some ideas in that front, and this is kind of fodder for that concept. Excuse me. Progressive media activists rattled by the collapse of a generation of youth-oriented digital news outlets like Vice and BuzzFeed News are pushing wealthy Democrats to invest in for-profit media companies and social media influencers. That's the conclusion of an 85-page report obtained by Semaphore and subsequently published online, prepared for a gathering of progressive leaders in Washington, D.C. last month. The report calls for diverting a share of the investment that's going into exclusively cause-funded nonprofits towards sponsored content and into direct investment in hybrid and for-profit enterprises with large audiences. So when they say hybrid and for-profit enterprises with large audiences, what they're actually talking about is, hey, we just saw Fox News fire Tucker Carlson, and then he put out a show on Twitter and murdered everyone's ratings. He took absolute dominant command of everyone's ratings. 100 million views. That's beyond Super Bowl numbers. 30% of America doesn't watch the Super Bowl. That's not to say that 60% of America does watch the Super Bowl. That's not even 30% of America watches the Super Bowl. And that's, when you're talking about something like that with viewership like that, the ad buy to put a 30-second commercial in the Super Bowl, right? You'll see these big overproduced ads where it looks like they just spent a fortune on the ad, and you can make, you make the ad happen for, $2 or $3 million with a celebrity and some big special effects, and it's just an over-the-top production. And the 30 seconds of airtime still cost more. And Tucker blew those viewership and ratings numbers away with a 10-minute video of a talking head speaking into a camera. Right? So, now we get this article here, and it says, likewise, rather than continuing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads, we believe that there is more long-term value for nonprofit investors, ranging from civic media-focused philanthropies to mission-driven super PAC investors. In diverting a share of that investment into sponsoring topical reporting in a for-profit, or simply in buying some of the stations on which they are now advertising, the report says. Titled Analysis of the Changing U.S. News Media Landscape and Strategies Toward Delivering Civic Value, the report also suggested backing social media influencers and networks of non-traditional journalists who reach audiences not served by mainstream outlets. And it recommended creating or backing hybrid nonprofit/for-profit newsrooms. And buying unwanted or rundown local television networks that still generate revenue and serve as vital resources for local community news and bulwarks against local gossip on sites like Nextdoor. Wow, a bulwark against local gossip on sites like Nextdoor. I don't know how many of you actually engage with Nextdoor. It's an interesting resource. It's basically a little social media app that, in theory, is localized to your immediate area. So if somebody goes on Nextdoor and says, hey, there was just a triple homicide in your backyard, they do in fact mean your backyard, not somewhere out there randomly. I use that example because it happened. It was over there a couple weeks ago. Just all of a sudden, middle of the night, holy shit, there was a gunfight in my neighborhood, and I slept through it because I'm deaf as a post when I take my hearing aids out. So this brings me around to a concept that I've been working on and talking to some people about and trying to build up. And what we have right now is there is a clear shift in the American politic. Right? We're now allowed to talk about how the 2020 election was stolen. We get to talk about that on YouTube now. I'm still a little unclear as to just exactly how far we can go with that, but we no longer have to pretend like 2020 was the freest and fairest election of all time. And anyone who believes that 2020 was a secure election couldn't tell salt from cyanide by tasting it, right? These are people who lack significant analytical and intelligence skills. But this concept I've been working on, and I'd like to start building on it more substantially. And so I'll go ahead and talk about it this morning, and hopefully a few of you out there can reach out through the show at brushfiremind.com. I probably need to put up a graphic to display the name there, but you can always go to brushfiremind.com and send us a message through the link at brushfiremind.com, or send us an email at theshow@brushfiremind.com. Excuse me. But here's the concept. We have young people now, and some old farts like me, who have them some cameras, have them some talents. They know a little something about making some content. What they don't have are large distribution platforms, or resources, right? You got a young man who wants to make the next John Wick. Believe it or not, a film like John Wick could be made on a much, much smaller budget and of similar quality once you get the Hollywood unions out of it. And you could obviously be hard to replace Keanu Reeves as John Wick, but just generally, bang bang, shoot 'em up action film. And the thing that's the hardest to deal with as a filmmaker to make content of that sort are the physical resources, the location, the gun props, the costumes, locations where you can do a car chase. If you want to film a car chase, that's an expensive big deal. Goldblum says Seagal should be the next John Wick. Seagal should be the next boss bad guy in the next John Wick. That shit would be hilarious. But even simple films, just the story of two kids about to graduate high school and fall in love. Well, we need a diner for them to have that first date in, or we need a movie theater to film them meeting outside of. We need a high school gymnasium for the big school dance, or we need a fancy ballroom for the prom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So out there, I have an audience of people who have some resources, right? Maybe you have a little empty land that's not being used or is easily available. Maybe you're like me and you've got a couple of hundred airsoft guns for military training that can easily be repurposed into film props, right? Anybody out there wants to make an action film and needs to put their hands on some gun props, I'm your guy. And I mean everything from your standard military issue M4 9mm type weapons all the way up to hand grenades, claymore mines, rocket launchers, the 249, 240 Bravo. Buddy, I can prop out your military film concept. We can do that. And then we need places to shoot them. Like my mom just says, I have land. And yeah, we are going to be doing some BFM projects at Mom and Dad's farm sometime soon. Usually for us, the biggest thing is trying to get everybody on the same page for a schedule. Logistics are a bitch. But I want to create a database of people who have resources of that sort. Land, cars, guns, different types of props, costume. Maybe you've got a costume shop. That'd be freaking outstanding. Or maybe you're a talented seamstress and can volunteer some time to help people make costumes. And I'll take on different types of projects, right? I'll take on, this kid's just trying to get started and needs to borrow some stuff. He needs free access to a place to shoot a 10-minute short film that he can take to the film festival and try to build his career on. Or, all the way up to, hey, I've actually got a budget. I've funded through crowdfunding. I've got about $20,000 to spend. And everybody in that database will be available to be approached either to donate resources. And we're not talking about gimme stuff. We're talking about, let me hold $1. We're talking about, hey, you're an electrician that already has a tool bag. Hey, while you're not working Saturday, can we use that in a film? I just need it on set because I need the prop, right? For example, and unfortunately, all the examples I can think of are things that I already have that I don't need. But I'm trying to make sure that I build this so that I can make it available to other filmmakers. And through that, I hope to build a network of other filmmakers who, hey, I need a sound guy because my guy is out bottling wine all weekend. So I need somebody to come out and run a mixer board. And if you've got a boom monkey to bring with you, I've got a boom pole. I just need somebody to hold it. Right? That kind of stuff. And Scrimshaw says, I'd love to help some kids like that. I used to work at a costume shop as a seamstress. I was very involved in the performing arts. Okay, so yes, and that's the thing that I want to make that happen. I'm not 100% sure how to make it happen yet, but I'd like to start with this. Until I figure out a way to integrate it as a concept on brushfiremind.com where a person can just go and use it. If you're watching this, you're seeing this, and you like the idea, send me an email to the show at brushfiremind.com. In that email, tell me who you are, what you do, what resources you're looking to put up, whether it's maybe you have the facility to make sugar glass bottles for bar fights. That's one of those things where like we can make them at home here, but if you're somebody who I need to talk to Rhonda. Maybe you've got an industrial size oven that can make larger batches of sugar bottles if we need to do a whole big long bar fight scene, stuff like that. Whatever it is, tell me who you are, give me some contact information and what kind of resources you have, and tell me what kind of films you'd be interested in sponsoring. And finally, if you know somebody who could benefit from this, help me get in touch with them as well. Right? So, even if you don't have something useful, and I mean, we're looking for anything that could potentially be useful for a film. Vintage cars. Hell, if you own a ghost town, we need to have dinner. Anything that might be cool in an old film, old vintage clothes for a period piece, like you want to shoot something, a little film noir scene that takes place in the 1930s or 40s, and you just got a closet full of old suits that you've been meaning to donate to Goodwill. Let us know. We get them washed up and put them to work. Some projects will be funded. Some projects will be volunteer. Nobody on the list in the database will ever be required to do anything. I will construct some mechanism for incentive, like, if you've done X number of the charity cases where you just donated stuff, then maybe you're the first one that I call when there's a paid case, or there's a funded case. But the idea isn't just to build up the stock of resources and make them available to conservative filmmakers, but to also build a network of conservative filmmakers who can work together and benefit from working with one another. Because outside of the resource problem, it's very difficult for a conservative filmmaker to go out and get funding together to acquire those resources. Sergeant Major says 501c3, and I believe he's absolutely correct on that. And like right now, conceptually, the way I'm working on this, I'm not sure if I need to kind of loosely build the communication infrastructure and the database first and then form the 501c3, but I'm figuring that out, right? And I'll be talking about this more and more and more as the show goes on, and I think I'm going to be just about ready to start doing presentations in the very near future. I'm building this thing up as a concept and looking for people to get involved. As soon as I can figure out a way to organize the information and sign people up easily, I'm going to start going to local GOP meetings around Georgia and asking to speak at their monthly meetings and present the concept and see what I can build out of this. And I think where I'm going to start is I'm going to get as many contacts on the roster as I can over the next couple months, and then see what building a 501c3 around the idea looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there for now. I've got to go meet with a client about a video in just a little bit, so it's time to get out the door. Thanks for watching this morning. I hope you like the idea. I think this is what I can do to start to really fight the culture war, right? You look at Daily Wire's doing good work. Tim Pool is starting to work on building coffee shops where part of the gimmick is that there's always a television that's playing like Tim Pool's show or the Daily Wire show or Daily Wire movies, conservative stuff. Very cool idea. And that'll be awesome. But I'll close with this one more time. So you can send an email to theshow@brushfiremind.com, or you can go to brushfiremind.com. And in fairness, I know I need to update the site a little bit because I've still got. Oh no, I did do the update. I got rid of the drop down menu. The countdown to midterm stuff, but you can scroll down and watch the SpaghettiOs movie play right there. That's always fun. But you can drop us a line right here, right? you can go in here and buy me a coffee. You can drop us a line right here, and this will send a message to the show at brushfiremind.com. And so ideally what I want to do is I'm going to figure out how to build a database interface that puts, and I'll have a form on the website like this, join the cause, something like that, and you'll just fill it out with what and it'll look a lot like this: first name, last name, email address, subject, message, but it'll probably, instead of your message, it'll probably be something like, what are you looking to offer? What are you looking to get out of it? And you'll be good to go. So, and just in case, this is brushfiremind, all one word.com. No indefinite article. It's not thebrushfiremind.com. It's just brushfiremind.com. And then once again, the email address, theshow@brushfiremind.com. So y'all check it out. Send me an email, and let's make this thing happen. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. I love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.